Welcome to Beyond Sports with Paul and Jeremy. Uh, yeah, Jeremy, interesting week in the NFL season. So we already had the trade deadline that went by, a couple of different interesting moves as well. Um, I think that today's show is going to be pretty amusing. Hopefully, we have a couple of people join in and add to the comments. Hopefully, some of our regulars come back because we always love hearing their comments. So thank you guys for coming as well. Jeremy, how's your week been? What's new in your life, by the way?
Hey man, TGI Thursday, cause it's just these weeks when I'm home are like the longest weeks. I gotta, make sure I'm actually doing work because it's so easy not to,
Yeah.
but it makes it a long, hard week. So I'm glad it's Thursday. How about you?
Yeah, I got work after this, so I'm chilling. But this is the end of my week, so partially. So not too bad. So I think after this I'll grab some food or work, then grab some food and enjoy myself for the weekend. So looking forward to it. So I think I said so 50 times right there, and I also have a stuffed nose still. So hopefully that goes away at some point too. Some
Yeah,
point
yeah,
soon.
yeah. It's not hot, man. You gotta get that taken care of.
Yeah, it's whatever, man. I live life like this, I guess. It's been too long. So oh well. Anyways, what are we talking about today? What are some of the things that we're discussing? And then I guess we'll yeah. So what are some of the things that we're going to be discussing today? By the way, Jeremy.
So we can go over some Week 9 games. There was a few games in Week 9 that I think were pretty good.
Okay.
Some were blowouts, but we can do that.
Yeah.
We can talk about our Week 10 games going forward, of course. And then there's a few stories that happened this past week or so that we might want to
Yeah.
go into. So there's a lot to talk about, and we'll see where we go.
All right. Cool. I'm actually kind of down to even just start out with some of those conversations. So if that's cool with you, does that work for today?
See,
All right, cool. So when we're speaking of C, I think that's a perfect way to start. So let's talk about a quarterback that's name starts with C. So Cam is rejoining the quarterback then Panthers. This is where I'm getting right. So Superman returns is the headline. Cam is rejoining the Panthers. Did you see this coming at all? Was this something that you even envisioned would ever happen?
not at all. And we talked about it too. We said Cam's probably not playing for anybody this year, right? Because
Yeah,
they
yeah,
need, he's not going to be able to just be a backup, even though he says he wants to. This is Cam Newton. This guy is a star. He's just a star. There's no way around it. So when he comes to your team has to get used to having him in your locker room. And so far, there's only been two teams in the NFL that have had that experience. So what better team to have him back in the locker room than his original team that made him famous and he made famous, the Carolina Panthers? I think
yeah.
it makes sense that there's really only one uniform you can imagine Cam Newton wearing, and only one city you can imagine him playing for. So it makes sense in that respect. I don't think it makes much sense in a football sense because he's not built for this system right now. And we're still getting that same thing that I said that was a problem in Carolina, where they're chasing free agent quarterbacks. So if he does end up
Mhm.
playing, then it's just going to be another free agent quarterback being chased. Now, apparently, PJ Walker is going to be the starter. Matt
Yeah.
Barkley is going to be the backup, and Cam is going to be third on the depth chart. But we'll see how long that whole situation lasts because if Cam Newton's on your team, there's going to be a clamor for Cam Newton to play.
That is a good point, right? I feel like Cam has always been the guy in Carolina, right? He's the guy that everybody looks up to. He's the guy that fans cheer behind, even when he wasn't necessarily playing the best. I don't feel like he often got booed out of the stadium in the sense of like we don't like you. We just want you to go away, you know? So there's always that love with Carolina and Cam Newton. And I think that that's one of the really good reasons to kind of bring him back. They already kind of know his system. He can kind of be a little bit more of a plug and play. They have Christian McCaffrey back. So it's going to be interesting to see if he starts or if he play. Is he supposed to start, by the way, or is it just
No, no, I said PJ Walker will start. That's
okay?
what's
PJ
supposed to
Walker. Okay,
happen,
gotcha. Sorry.
right? So I don't know how long it's going to last, but right now, PJ Walker's number one, Matt Barkley's number two, and then Cam is number three, as I understand it.
Interesting. So you know what's interesting about that specific part is that um, when we talked about Cam and we talked about offenses that he would be able to be a part of, we said that they had to be specific to his playing style. At least I said that, right? Like I said that it needs to be something that he could be plugged into be able to utilize his skill sets, because if not, then it was going to be a little bit harder for him to really get a job. No one wants to redesign their whole offense for Cam Newton. It just takes too much away from the team. It takes away from some of your stars. I was talking about that in another group chat earlier, that how when you have a quarterback that is very streamlined with what they do very well or what they do well, you have to make sure that you accompany that by the plays and by the way that you run your offense. Sometimes that alienates different types of guys, and that kind of like hurts the team overall. So now being back in Carolina, talking about PJ Walker, he was actually one of the backup quarterbacks for the Colts, right? So PJ Walker started out with the Colts, I believe, from Temple, I believe, right? And
Yeah.
solid guy. I know that they wanted to keep him around as a backup, but they just didn't. They just had too many people. And now it's good that he's getting a chance to start. I think that him and Cam have some similarities. PJ Walker got better with his accuracy as he started playing, and as he got a little bit older or got a little bit more experience. So I think that that's a really good thing for PJ Walker. And now if something does happen, right, you have Cam there. There's definitely going to be those people out there saying we want Cam to start. So I say if PJ Walker lights it up, Cam probably won't start this year, right? If PJ Walker struggles a little bit, has some parts of a good game, I wouldn't be surprised to see Cam as a starting quarterback. And I also wouldn't be surprised to see him get cut as well. Like it's kind of weird, but hey, actually I can't see him getting cut now. I think about it. Didn't they say he got 6 million guaranteed?
ESPN said 4.5 million, so it's either one of those numbers. Either way, it's a lot of
Wow.
money to just cut a person. So he's
It
getting
is.
paid.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
hey, his patience paid off. He's not getting paid what he was making before, but $4.5 million. Hey, that's not too bad.
It ain't. Especially saying that you didn't have no job and ain't nobody want to hire you. So now he's sitting pretty, I guess, in Carolina. If he plays, if he doesn't play, maybe that's kind of like a going away present as well, right? Like, hey Cam, we're not gonna have you playing, but we don't want to do you bad because you did give us a lot. So here's a little going away present for you. This 6 million guaranteed or
So now
4.5,
you're
whatever it
saying
is.
that they're going to ask him to go away?
Maybe they're just bringing him back for morale. Maybe he's there for the fans to teach PJ Walker a little bit. But maybe it's just like they'll bring him back, give him that guaranteed money. Season's already over. Yeah, who knows? Now I guess season isn't necessarily already over, but they don't look impressive right now. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll
No,
see what
and
happens with
it's
this man.
and adding Cam Newton is not going to make them any more viable for the playoffs necessarily. You just have to take into account injuries happen. You have PJ Walker who's not used to the NFL, right? Who knows if he'll take a bad hit? Matt Barkley, who nobody really wants as their starter. So, if anything happens, the path could be open for Cam to play anyway.
Yeah, Matt Barkley seems so old, man. Like he's younger than Peyton Manning, but Matt Barkley seems like he's like 50 years old for some reason. Like he
Everybody's
stays
younger than
around.
Peyton Manning, dude.
It seems like he just stays around, and it's like, why is he still in the league? I have no idea why Matt Barkley is in the league at all. Like he's another one of those quarterbacks that was drafted and didn't really do much. Like I never expected much out of Matt Barkley. I never thought he was going to be uh, a solid quarterback. But that's what you got from a lot of those USC guys. So
Exactly. It's the USC quarterbacks. That's what it
yeah,
is.
yeah, man, that's pretty crazy. So, oh well, man. Overall, any last thoughts on that Cam Newton situation, by the way, and the Panthers? What do you expect for them for the rest of the year? If PJ Walker is leading them, if Sam Darnold comes back, if Matt Barkley or Cam has to win, how far can that team actually make it? By the way,
Seeing how they've been playing, I think if they limit the turnovers, they can stay at around 500. And that's what I'm expecting for them. I don't expect them to be super high. And looking at the other teams in their division, Tampa's clearly making the playoffs. I think New Orleans can make the playoffs if they get their offense together.
yeah,
So I don't see the Panthers making the playoffs, but I think they can at least be around 8-9, 9-8 maybe. And I think
yeah.
that'll be a successful season right there. And personally, as a North Carolina native, I'm happy to see Cam back. I thought it was not a great move football wise, like I said, but just like personally, it's nice to see Cam back with the Panthers.
Yeah, I think that that's the biggest thing. Like just seeing him back personally, it's a good thing, right? I feel like the way that he left, the way that he kind of went away was not the best type of thing. So just seeing him sporting that, it's gonna bring a lot of energy to this team. And we talked about the Panthers defense and we talked about how they were suspected to have a very strong defense coming into the year. They haven't really showed to that level, but maybe having Cam back definitely helps out. Maybe that gives them that edge that they need to push forward, you know.
And also, if your
Go ahead.
quarterback is throwing the ball away, if you're fumbling the ball all over the place, getting short fields, that's going to make your defense look a lot worse than what it really is. So,
Yeah, that is
again,
true.
limit turnovers. Maybe you actually make opponents drive the length of the field. Anything can happen.
Yeah, and I think honestly, like I said, PJ Walker, I think he's a solid quarterback, and I'm excited to see what he's going to do with the Panthers. I don't want to overlook that specific part of it because PJ Walker is one of those guys that I've seen ever since he came out of college. He was a very interesting prospect. He showed a lot of potential, and was he in the CFL or what was he in
XFL.
XFL? Yeah, XFL, and did really well there. So now coming back to the NFL, getting a shot to lead a team that definitely needs a quarterback. I think that this is one of those situations where, hey, the Panthers may surprise somebody going forward. Sorry, Aaron Donald got that injury, but maybe this was better for the team overall anyway. So we'll see what happens with that
Yeah.
whole situation.
And when I think about PJ Walker, I always think about Madam CJ Walker, Black History. I don't know. It's something.
Naptown, stand up. All right,
Oh, there
cool.
you go.
Yeah, that's pretty cool, man. So Cam's back. Panthers. Who are they playing this week, by the way? Let me see.
The
Arizona.
Arizona. Yeah,
Just
I knew it was a
count that
loss.
as yeah.
So I mean,
Count that
whoever
as a
they're
loss.
playing, yeah,
It's just well, actually, maybe it won't be a loss. Maybe Carolina will have that energy. We'll see. We'll see what our picks are when we get to those. So
yeah. Do we know Kyler's status, by the way?
short.
Oh, he's short.
Yeah,
I said status, not stature.
same thing. He's short. It's like, how you doing, man? I'm short, man. I need these stilts and these
How am I
stilts.
doing?
I
I'm
can't
like
see over
Kevin
the
Hart on the
line. I
football
keep
field.
running. Yeah, it's pretty funny. So, all right. So we talked about that one. The other story that we were talking about was OBJ. So OBJ, if you guys don't know, he got let go by the Cleveland Browns, right? Cleveland Browns had been kind of iffy up and down. And then last week they let him go. They played against Cincinnati Bengals and they blew the Bengals out. They just whooped them like they got bad grades on their report card, like they whooped the heck out of them. So what do you make, first of all, before we get to OBJ, what do you make of Cleveland? Did they do the right move by letting him go? Was it a money type of thing? Do you think that it was more related to system? Because there was a big deal made when he first came there, pairing Jarvis Landry with OBJ, with whatever that quarterback's name is, Baker, right? So
Yes, Baker.
Baker, right? So pairing them together, we thought this was going to be a very explosive offense. Why'd they let him go? And what do you think of that decision, first of all?
I think he had to go because the chemistry wasn't there. The problem was, I think that Baker wanted to use OBJ as a number one wide receiver, but Baker just couldn't use him that way. I'm not sure why. I'm not sure if he just forced him. They said that he tried to force the ball to him too much. I don't think Beckham caught a lot of passes he should have caught. I think he was, maybe the accuracy wasn't there for Mayfield. Either way, the connection didn't work. And you saw the connection with Jarvis Landry look a lot better from Baker Mayfield.
Yeah.
So you knew at that point that it just wasn't working, but you figured, hey, maybe they can work something out. The issue is that Odell Beckham Jr. is not a second wide receiver. That's not his mentality.
No,
He
it's
wants
not.
the ball like a number one. So it's just caused all kinds of problems. And I think having him not there when he was injured, the offense flowed better and people noticed it. And then the times when he didn't play this year, it was the same situation. So I think the team figured, hey, we could let him go and not actually drop off. And in the game that he didn't play before he got released, like you said, they dominated. So, that could be coincidental, and it probably was. But the fact is, if the locker room feels a lot better, if there's a weight lifted, then it was a good move. So they had to let him go. And, he wanted to play, I guess, in with the Rams because he wanted to play on a contender. So that'll be an interesting fit because the question then, how does he fit with the Rams? And so what do you think about that?
Um, I think I think two things. So first thing I just want to say, I think that Donovan Peoples Jones, I think that him coming along, Rashard Higgins, those guys, I think that made OBJ expandable, right, or dispensable, right? So they can let go of him. They didn't really need to keep him around, especially when they're more run heavy right now with Chubb and Hunt, and then Hunt also, as Yancey was saying, Hunt also is catching a lot of passes out of the backfield, and I think that when you have that combination as well as the other wide receivers, like you don't need that overload that's OBJ, whether it's in the receiving room, demanding catches, demanding targets, whatever it might have been. He wasn't necessarily needed there. So, first of all, good for the Cleveland Browns. Addition by subtraction in a sense. Right now, they have more money to probably play with, which is good for them, and they have a better team flow overall. Now going to the Rams, what do I think about that? So I think that the situation with the Rams is kind of interesting. Like I don't know how good OBJ is. Also, I think that that's my biggest issue. I don't know how good he is, and I don't know how he's gonna affect the chemistry of the receiving group. Right. So you have Cooper Cup there, right? You have Robert Woods there. Both of those guys have a chemistry already with Matt Stafford, and that's amazing. So now what they're doing is they're saying, okay, we want a big play guy. So that means that OBJ, his real job is to be that big play guy, maybe a decoy on a lot of plays. I don't know how that's going to necessarily sit with him overall, especially if he's not necessarily getting those targets. So I think that it could work out if OBJ plays to that level where he's known to play at before. But it could backfire and he could be let go as well because I don't even know. Did you see how much he signed for? Cam probably got more than OBJ, didn't he?
No, I didn't see the numbers. The
Mm,
one thing about his usage that I question is, so they lost Desean Jackson, and that was their over the top big play guy, right?
yeah,
And then I think, were trying to use Van Jefferson in that same role.
yeah.
So if they're trying to transition Van Jefferson to that role, that means that you're not going to use Beckham that way. So are you going to use Beckham in the same way you use Robert Woods? I feel like it is an interesting question as to how you're going to use him, because
Yeah.
I think he's more of an intermediate. I don't think he's a short guy. I don't think he's a over the top guy. I think he's somewhere in the middle. So I don't know if he's still, capable of running past people. I feel like he's more of an intermediate route type guy. So do they need another guy like that? Can they use him that way? I don't know. It'll be interesting to see, because their real need was to replace Desean Jackson, right? And I think they pretty much are trying to do that in house. So where does OBJ fit in that respect? I'm not sure.
Man, yeah, I say the bigger thing for me, I like Von Miller coming more than I like OBJ. I just saw a picture of OBJ a second ago with four diamonds on his teeth in like a cross. Like it looked really weird and awkward. See, that's the type of stuff that in the locker room, like, man, what are you doing? What, like, chill out, dude, man. Like, I don't understand what's going on with you. I think he's trying to market himself more than he's trying to market the team, and I think that that's one of the things that's going to kind of hurt. And like you're saying, Van Jefferson, he's not necessarily that deep threat type of guy, right? Like he's really good as a route runner, right? Like he can get separation from a lot of different people. And that's what you have with the guys that are there. If it's Cup, if it's Woods, if it's Jefferson, they all are really good route runners. And I think that that's one of the things that really helps Matt Stafford elevate his game is because now you got guys that are doing precision routes. You know that when you get the ball and you throw it there, that's where they're going to be. So timing is very key and timing is very clutch with these guys. And OBJ, he's kind of that wild card. Maybe that's what they really need in the sense of they need a wild card, a guy that's going to go out there and make some of those plays. So when they do want to go four wide receivers at a time, now they have a guy that can really start carving out something. And I like how you said he's not really that short guy. He's not really that deep guy, but he's like maybe that 15 to 25-yard route guy, right? He can get open in that area and he can stretch out some of those plays. So maybe that's what they're trying to look at him for. And maybe that's the role that he'll carve out. But overall, does this game or does this add wins to the Rams? What do you think? Do they become one game better during the season, or are they about the same at this point?
I don't think that they're any different, because they haven't lost anyone. They've just added one other person that they might or might not use, right? So what they can do is use them when they need them, but not necessarily use them all the time. He might get angry. He might get upset about it. But it's almost like that year Seattle won the Super Bowl and with Percy Harvin. And do you remember, like, Percy Harvin was hurt like all year,
Yeah.
And he came and he really only showed up, it felt like, in the Super Bowl. And he made a huge play. I think he returned a kickoff for a touchdown. And you're like, that is why you get Percy Harvin. In a game that you kind of already won, but you need to
Hmm.
kind of help make sure it was out of reach,
Yeah.
he showed up. Every other time he was kind of a headache. And he had migraines too, I think. So either
Yeah.
way,
He did have migraines.
I
He's
think
silly.
so. That I didn't mean that, but either way, like maybe they only need OBJ for one or two plays in a
Yeah.
big moment, and that's it. Otherwise, he just needs to fit in and not mess up the chemistry.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things with OBJ. It's just like, yeah, just fit in, don't do too much. I think Shannon Sharp said had to talk to nephew, had to tell him. Yeah, I
He
will
made
let
it
you
up,
do it.
didn't he? He was making it
But
up.
he said I had a conversation with him. It's like I need you to be like a snake. He said a snake. He's like, yeah, I need you to be like a snake. He's like, you got a lot of stuff and you need to shed it. You need to shed it. You can't just keep saying, I know that I have this dead skin on me. You need to shed that skin. And he's like, yeah, that's is Shannon Sharp being Shannon Sharp, right?
Is
But
this real? Is this
yeah,
you
this is
really heard
real.
this?
This is real. This is what
When did he
Shannon
say
Sharp.
this?
Look it up, man. Look it up. Look at Shannon Sharp tells OBJ he's like a snake and he needs to lose his skin. Look it up. Everybody look it up. Shannon Sharp,
Shannon
amazing,
Sharp said,
amazing,
"Skip,
amazing guy. Yeah.
OBJ, I need you to be like a snake. Skip,
Yeah.
skip."
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so he basically told him that he needs to not be so much of a diva because OBJ was basically saying, yeah, I know that I have to carry these issues. I know, blah, 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 blah. He's like, I don't need you necessarily just to acknowledge them. I need you to make sure that you're making the effort to get rid of that type of mindset because people aren't going to want to be on the team with you. They're not going to want to play with you, blah, blah, blah. So, hey, I think that that's one of the biggest things for OBJ. He has to really figure out how he can fit into a culture because there's been a lot of situations where he's maybe he hasn't made that feeling happen, but there's been a lot of situations where when he's been a part of the team, people have had to wonder, is he more about the team or is he more about the self or about himself? And we definitely saw that with the Giants. And I think that's one of the reasons why he's not there anymore. Like
Yeah, it was that
it is what
Jodeci
it is.
picture.
So, man, it's too many stories about that dude, bro.
Yeah. So would you? I mean, this is off topic, but would you actually tell Shannon Sharp any of your business? Would you have a conversation with him? If because he'd be blowing people up,
I
and
mean,
I don't know.
he does, but I imagine Shannon Sharp, knowing the person that he is, if he ever stepped out of line, he would apologize to somebody publicly, or he would actually ask them beforehand to get permission to do and share their information. Not like Stephen A. Smith, man. I
He
don't mess
called
with
Julio
bro.
Jones on air and was like, "Hey, what's up? What's up, nephew? Oh, you on air, by the way? I think was it Julio Jones?
I don't know.
I think it was. He called. Don't quote me, but I'm pretty sure it was somebody that was like,
Don't quote you,
"Man,
man.
this
This is live
organization."
video. What you talking about?
He was like, "This organization was like, hey man, this organization is trash." And he's like, "Oh, you on live air?" He's like, "Oh,
That's
oh, all
funny.
right, let me call you back." It's like he got
Yeah.
somebody like that, and I'm pretty sure it was Julio Jones.
He's silly, man. Yeah. So I honestly I think that OBJ he has a lot to prove. And he's on a 1 year contract, so that means there's a good chance that he may not necessarily be there next year. So he better show how he can contribute because if he doesn't here, he might be one of those wide receivers that just kind of gets lost in transition, where nobody really kind of picks him up. Everybody's like, when's he gonna come? Like, isn't it the same thing that happened to Dez Bryant, right? Dez Bryant kind of had that same thing. T.O. kind of had that same type of thing after a while.
Yeah,
There's
those guys
a
dealt
lot of
with
guys.
injuries though. I think Des Bryant had an Achilles tear. Like he had just a
Yeah.
bad injury,
Well, OBJ had
and
an injury too, right?
yeah, he had ACL. Yeah, but he
Yeah.
hasn't had a
So again,
recent
it's the same
injury
type of
like that.
thing.
I think he's got shoulder injuries now though, actually. At least that's
Man,
what I've heard. So maybe that kind of inhibits his ability to catch the ball. I've heard he had shoulder injuries. I thought anyway. So
yeah, I don't
yeah,
know. I don't know what's up with that guy. So we'll see what happens with him. But good luck to the Browns. Glad that he was able to get signed by some team. Hopefully he's able to stick. Hopefully he's able to contribute, and maybe he can get back to his former self in some type of way. Because I mean, Matt Stafford will probably be the best quarterback that he's played with in his whole career. So
yeah.
um,
But I
so
don't think
that should
that
be
this
interesting.
makes them Super Bowl favorites. I don't think this changes whatever order the NFC is in right now. I don't think it changes that.
Yeah, I think that I'm going along those same lines, but hopefully they can change my mind. I think that that's an awesome place to go ahead and jump into our last week's picks. Did you want to add anything else to the OBJ conversation before we start with those?
Nah, man, OBJ. Sometimes they call him ODB, and I think he likes it raw. I don't know. I'm just asking. I don't know if he does or not.
ODBJ.
ODB. Who knows?
You silly man.
But no, I don't have any other
Um,
things.
all right, so I'm gonna quickly go through these game scores. I'm just gonna flash through those, and then once we do that, I'll tell you about our records, and then we can pick out some individual games and kind of go at that rate. So let me see. Man, everything wants to reload and stuff. Computers these days, sometimes they support you,
Well, while you're reloading,
sometimes.
Tar Heels are playing Pitt right now. Pitt is the number one team in our division in the ACC.
Hey,
I fully expect us to lose this football. I fully expect us to lose, but we'll see.
yeah,
We
boiler
somehow
up.
pulled
By the
off
way,
that win over Wake Forest, that non-conference game win over Wake Forest
it
last
was
week.
Sam, man. Sam didn't want you guys to go down the
Yeah,
route of losers.
Sam Howell needs to throw the ball more. I don't know why he wants to be Derrick Henry all of a sudden. He's always running and trying to truck people and stuff. I don't know why he does it, but he loves running,
Mm.
and I think he does it a little too much, seeks contact a little too much. But it's really our defense that's the problem. We can't stop anything. So we can win a 58-55 game, but we can't win a 12-10 game, Can't do it.
Maybe he's trying to do the reverse Ryan Tannehill. Maybe he no longer wants to play quarterback and
Oh,
he's
he's going to
gonna
try
try
to
to
be a wide
switch.
receiver?
Yeah, that Wes Welker type of thing.
Scott Frost.
Man, what is up with ESPN? I told you I hate ESPN, man. I wish there was another site, but you know what? I started to realize that there's such a market share between some of these hosting sites, and that's why they just put out whatever type of stuff. You know what I mean? Like I think fantasy football has jousted some of these places, and fantasy basketball, baseball has jousted or put them into a point where they just have so much of the market share. So it's hard to not use their resources
Yeah.
for sports, and that's kind of sad. There needs to be something different. Like, how can you have such a market share on the airing of of television for sports? Like I get it in a sense because they're paying a crap ton of money for these rights, but there has to be some other way that you can allow others to use these resources where it can't just be capped. So that's just my quick thought on that part. But um, let's go through last week's picks. So I'm just gonna do it a little bit different. I'm just gonna go through all the games and then we'll come to it, right? So let's see, Jets, Indiana, or Colts. Indiana blew out the Jets 45-30. Minnesota at Baltimore was an overtime game where Baltimore pulled it out in the end, 34-31. The next game was New England at Carolina. New England basically is establishing themselves as a solid team in the NFL. They won 24-6. Cleveland and Cincinnati, a game where a lot of people expected Cincinnati to win. Cleveland blew them out by almost 30 points, right? So Cleveland really showed up. That's one of the things that we were just talking about with OBJ and them releasing him. So congrats to Cleveland on that game. Denver pulled the upset of Dallas. Dallas, are they real? Are they fakers? They might be fakers. They may have always been fakers. We may have been the fools. I don't know. But anyways, Denver is coming up with the win for that one. The next game was Buffalo versus Jacksonville. This one was kind of confusing, seeing that Buffalo has been so dominant. I think I picked them to go 50 points to 13 points or something,
Yeah,
and I
yeah. We,
wasn't
we both
anywhere
predicted
close.
huge blowouts in that, and that did not
Nowhere
happen.
close. Jacksonville got their second win of the season, so
Yeah, their
shout out
first
to the
win in the
Jacksonville
United
Jags.
States.
Hey, I know this is
Dang.
the first win. I told you, man. After that whole incident with the coach, yeah, they're trying to get it together.
They
You got to fight for the
galvanized them. Yeah,
family.
galvanized them together to play for Urban Meyer
Hey,
and to win in
that
the
was
U.S.
it had to be something. They needed something to happen. So hopefully that helps them out. The next one was Houston versus Miami. Miami won it 17-9. Houston still struggling on offense. So that's just going to be one of those ongoing stories. Again, like I said, I think they're going to be one of the bottom teams, having one of the top picks. Too bad there's no like lock type quarterbacks at the beginning of this year's draft. The next game is Atlanta versus New Orleans. Atlanta pulled off the upset in the Big Easy. So shout out to Atlanta winning 27-25 against the New Orleans Saints. The next game was the Las Vegas, what are the Raiders? Las Vegas
Yeah.
Raiders at the New York Giants. New York Giants won that game. Again, this is one of the teams that we were discussing with Las Vegas. Are they for real or are they not for real, right? And this is one of those points where it's really starting to be important, especially when we're talking about the AFC and we're talking about how close that wild card matchup is. every game right now is very important. So Las Vegas took a loss by a touchdown to the Giants. The next game was the Chargers versus the Philadelphia Eagles. The Chargers won 27-24 in a very close game. Really interesting. So I know we picked opposite on that game, so we'll definitely talk a little bit about that one. Green Bay to Kansas City. Kansas City won 13-7. Green Bay looked like it was just out of order with Jordan Love at the beginning of the game, especially just because he wasn't connecting with wide receivers. He felt like the pressure was kind of one of those things. So we'll talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, Green Bay looked like they lost their starting quarterback. Kansas City does not have any excuses.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, so I think that's one of the things, right? Kansas City, we knew Green Bay is going to have a strong defense, and I guess that can kind of account for why Kansas City only scored 13 points. I like I said, we'll talk more about that in just a second, I guess, before I get too carried away with that one. A couple more games left. So Arizona versus San Francisco. Arizona won 31-17. San Francisco still isn't doing that much, and Arizona is still lighting it up, no matter who the
Behind Colt
quarterback is.
McCoy.
Yeah,
You want to talk
behind
about
Colt.
somebody that's still in the league?
Hey, Colt McCoy was getting it, man. He was running all over the field, sliding like a professional. He was
Running
like,
that
man,
Kyler offense.
I was watching that game and I was thinking, you know what? Colt McCoy's like, man, this is crazy. I don't know how I did this all the time. It's like I got one good game in me left. Shoot. I don't
That
know
was
if
it.
I don't know if I could do no more. But the next game that we have is Tennessee versus the Rams, where Tennessee, the best team in the NFL, won 28-16 in LA. So congrats to the Tennessee Titans. They are really showing what they can do. The last game that we have for you guys is Chicago versus Pittsburgh in a very close matchup with those teams. A lot of excitement in that game.
Somebody
Pittsburgh
had to
pulled out
win,
the win 29-27.
and
And I think that was a
ESPN
really
made that
interesting game.
Monday Night Football, so somebody had to watch also.
Yeah, I watched. It was a good game, man. It was definitely a good game. So after all those games, just kind of giving you guys what our picks were last year or last week. So Jeremy went 7-7. So good job. You're right at 50%. And I went 8-6. So a little bit better, but not by much, right? So Jeremy, we just talked about all the different games from last week. Uh, what are some of the games that stood out to you personally?
I think that Dallas game was the most surprising game. I
Yeah.
think it is a close it like the Buffalo game is a close second to it. But the reason
Yeah.
why the Dallas was so surprising was because of how bad they got handled. It was what 30-0 at one point at
Um,
Dallas by a Denver team that could not score points most of the season. They won, they had a soft schedule early, were 3-0, and then they got a little bit exposed and you saw their offense on the big stage, it looked not good. Yet they go into Dallas and they dominate, and Dallas can't score a point with their starting quarterback back. So what's going on with Dallas? Maybe it's a rhythm thing. I wouldn't overreact too much, but again, we know Dallas is supposed to finish 8-9 or 9-8. So being 6-1 was just a little too much for them. You got to bring it back to the middle. So we'll see how they
exactly.
go in the future. But this was a typical Dallas showing of the time when you get the most faith in them, they let you down.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that's really interesting. Like you're talking about, we never really expected Dallas to be where they are right now in the sense of momentum and being that good of a team. The record, maybe we expected the record to be somewhere around here, but not as good as what it seemed like it was going to be. Another thing, Jeremy thought the Broncos did really well, and they actually did do really well, especially when they had Jerry Judy early on in the season, right? He's a bigger part, right? Leading the team in targets again. It's good to have that reliable source, especially when you're talking about a quarterback like Teddy Bridgewater that really goes off of accuracy compared to passing distance all the time. So for Teddy Bridgewater, having Jerry Judy back, maybe that's one of the things that helps elevate him. And then the running game for the Broncos was amazing, accounting for almost 200 yards on the ground. Javante Williams had his coming out party
Tar Heel.
during that game. So again, those Tar Heels out there killing it, right? Man. So outside of that, yeah, I think that the Cowboys still have a lot of issues. I don't know what to make of them all the way. The Cowboys just don't look like the top team that I would want them to be if they want to go far in these playoffs, right? You have CD Lamb, he had 9 targets, only caught 2. Their next leading receiver was Malik Turner with 7 targets. So again, they have a lot of issues in Dallas. Dak was definitely off of this game. We'll see if they can pull it back this week.
Yeah, I think when you look at the best teams in the NFL, they're always there's always this toughness about them, and
Yeah.
Dallas does not have a toughness about them. I think that's of recent why you don't have much faith in Dallas. Let's look at a team like Baltimore. Baltimore is a tough team, and you know you're going to get a fight from them every time. Even if they lose, you know they're going to fight. And it starts with all their leaders on the team. The most notable the team is a tough person that's going to fight, and it's not like fake tough guy stuff. It's genuine, want to win, want to fight hard.
Yeah.
Dallas, you don't get that sense from them, and not that they're weak or anything like that, but it's more of a finesse team. That's how it feels. And as much as they
Yeah.
want to say that their defense is better, their defense still doesn't feel as dominating as it would need to be for you to have faith in them week in and week out. So
Mm.
I think there's a toughness that's just not there. I don't know where you get it from. I think, maybe it has to do with kind of the scheme and the coaching to get those guys a little angrier, a little tougher. But whatever it is, I think there's just that little bit of toughness that's lacking for Dallas.
Yeah, and speaking of toughness with Dallas, Dallas actually lost one of the toughest players on their team to injury with Gregory going down on the defensive front. So that's one of those guys that he's definitely tough. He actually was recruited to Purdue, was supposed to play at Purdue, switched last minute. I think he went to Wisconsin or Nebraska. I think it was Nebraska. Then had his little issues, slid down the board, got drafted, and hey, he's a really solid player when he can stay healthy and stay out of trouble. So that's a big loss for the Dallas Cowboys, especially in that toughness department. So we'll see what happens to the rest of their season because this game coming up this week, a lot of people probably think that it's not going to be as competitive because of the two teams that are matched up, but we'll see what happens coming up Sunday. So, all right, man. So we talked about the Dallas game. One of the other games that stood out to me was that Buffalo Jacksonville game. So, what do you make of that Buffalo Jacksonville game?
How did that happen? I didn't see it. I don't know how it happened. But you don't expect Buffalo to score 6 points. However you slice it. You don't expect them to score 6 points. You
Yeah,
also don't expect a team to win in this day and age by only scoring 9. So there was a lot of stuff going on, a lot of quarterback hits, a lot of turnovers it seemed like. I think that for whatever reason Jacksonville rattled Josh Allen and it just wasn't there for him. And a lot was made about the two Josh Allens. We're not going to do that. But there's just a lot of things going on there that rattled the defense or the offense and got their rhythm off. And Jacksonville won a close, tough game, which is really impressive for Jacksonville.
yeah. I think
And
that. Go ahead. Mhm.
oh, I forgot what I was gonna say. Don't worry. Go ahead.
In something
Yeah, I know.
Texas.
I don't
Oh, okay.
remember.
All right, you'll remember it. Once you remember it, just let me know.
Yeah.
All right. So the only thing I want to say is that, yeah, I think that that's the biggest thing that we keep seeing from the Bills is that they're overly confident, right? They're too confident at times. And because of that confidence, they forget that there's another team that's playing against them that also has some ability. And the more that they start to overlook teams and think that they're going to win every game, the more that they set themselves up for bigger failures like this, right? I don't think that they anticipated that they were going to have as much pressure coming from the Jags, right? And I think that once that pressure started coming, it was hard for them to build it up. And then they just kind of kept playing along, not taking it serious, weren't putting points in the board. We always have enough time. They didn't have enough time. And it wasn't that the Jags offense was amazing, right? It was a game, what was it, 6-9 or something? So it was
Hmm.
a very low scoring game in general. So, I think that that is just saying that the Bills right now, they need to wrangle back in who they are, play to their identity. Because if you remember last year, right, it was a little bit different. They were more of that underdog role, right? They were playing with something to gain, some type of momentum. They had that to push them forward. Nobody know who they were, and they had to show them who they were. Now, what they're trying to do is they're trying to establish their dominance, but dominance doesn't necessarily mean that your team needs to be overly confident, right? And I think that that's the problem. Be dominant. Don't be overly confident, because once you're overly confident in a situation like they were, you find yourself losing to the Jacksonville Jaguars to a score of 9-6. So Buffalo better figure it out quick, because things are definitely moving in the AFC, and if you take that mindset into the playoffs, there's a good chance that you're going to get beat a little bit earlier than you expect.
Yeah, and they only have a half game lead over New England now. So
Yeah,
as much as we liked Buffalo going into the season, they were supposed to go 17-0. I'm gonna keep saying that.
17 it. Oh, who
Yeah,
said
they've
that?
lost. They've lost.
Who
Like
said
they've
that?
lost way too many games, right? Like it just doesn't make any sense. They were only supposed to lose two at most.
Yeah, definitely right.
So New England's 5-4, second place in that division, have a very winnable game coming up. So who knows, man? If Buffalo doesn't straighten out, who knows what could happen? And a lot of people were picking New England as dark horses to make the playoffs, and that division is going to get really interesting,
Yeah.
especially because New England is on 3 straight wins right now, so they're hot.
So it's definitely one of those things that, like I said, some people didn't necessarily anticipate that win against Carolina. We talked about Carolina's issues. That's one of those things. But yeah, New England is right there with them, so they definitely need to be pretty careful. Luckily, they still have the Dolphins in their division, which helps
Mm-hmm.
them out a lot. But
Oh, and what I was going to point out
hmm,
is that the Bills were the number one in point differential until this week when now they lost they're 117 plus 117 in point differential, and Arizona's plus 122. So
oh
had Buffalo acted like their normal selves and won the game, they would be the best point differential team. And you pointed out how much you love that stat, and it
yeah.
just goes to show Arizona might be the best team just based on that because they're not giving up very many points.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how the season goes, especially for Arizona, right? Like Arizona was one of those teams that we're talking about doing really well. We talked about the injury issue. They held up last week without Kyler Murray there. Like we said, Colt McCoy was out there in rare form,
Looking
showcasing
like
all of his
'09
skills.
Texas.
But again, they beat that San Francisco team that's been having those issues. We talked a little bit about San Francisco. What I want to do is just jump into. I just want to make one quick point, and then I want to jump into our games of the week, right? So one thing that I thought was interesting is that both of us thought that the Giants were going to beat the Raiders, right? A lot of people had the Raiders. Giants didn't have Saquon Barkley, but they were able to pull out that win. So just a question to you, right? Are the Giants good enough ish? Or are the Raiders just trash?
Man, you have this thing where you're really good at picking a team and then trying to figure out how they're good and you justify it. It's a
I'm
loyalty
asking
thing. I
you.
get it.
I'm asking
It's a
you. I'm
loyalty
asking
thing.
you.
I get it.
I'm
But I
asking
know
you,
you're
man.
asking this question because you love the Giants for no reason. You just love
I
I
don't
think
love the
it's Daniel
Giants. I
Jones.
don't love the
It's Daniel
Giants.
Jones.
I don't love the Giants. I don't love Daniel Jones, but I recognize what their team is capable of. One player that I do love on their team, as far as the way that he plays the game with that intensity, he plays with that same type of like intensity, like my defensive guys like Ja and Dylan Brooks and everybody, like those young energetic guys. Kadarius Tony is a beast, man. Like get the ball in his hands and he will lead you to the promised land. There's so many good young wide receivers in the NFL right now. And I'm just excited to see how these guys are doing. I think that Daniel Jones has a lot of ability. Him being able to get it done on his feet is something that's very next level. There's not a lot of guys that have that confidence to be able to do it the same way that he does it. Maybe he's not necessarily the best decision maker. Maybe his passing isn't necessarily amazing, but I did have him as one of the top 10 quarterbacks going into the season. And I do think that he shows often enough that he can bring a lot to a team. And then on the other hand, I didn't know that they were going to really, really like confidently beat the Raiders. Right. And that's one of the things that's interesting to me is that the Raiders did lose a couple of key pieces. And now what to make of it, right? The game last week they blew it, or the game 2 weeks ago they blew a team out. Then this week they come back and they lose to the Giants, which a lot of people didn't really have a lot of confidence in. So
Yeah,
that's where the question's coming
but
from.
as far as Daniel Jones goes, just really quick, I'm not impressed that he does it with his feet if he doesn't do it as well with his arm. So, do we
Yeah,
want to convert him to running back? That's cool. Well, otherwise, he should probably be making his best plays through the air. What I think about it is that I think that the Giants have had moments where you're like, oh, they're decent. And you know that they're a pretty tough team and they fight pretty hard. So I'm not surprised that they can beat a team that's probably on their level.
Yeah.
But I don't think they're good. And I don't think that the Raiders are particularly good right now. It looked like they were really good, but the state that their team is in, that's why I thought that the Giants would win.
Mm-hmm.
So they're both, I think, kind of mediocre, middle of the road, too bad teams. They're somewhere in that realm of being mediocre or sub mediocre. So
Sub
I'm not
mediocre.
necessarily surprised at the outcome because we thought that the Giants would win. And it's also one of those things where either of those teams could probably beat any other team and you wouldn't be surprised, but you don't
Yeah.
expect consistency from either of those teams.
I don't expect consistency from either one of those teams.
I think that one of the things for me that's going to be interesting is once Saquon Barkley comes back, what happens then? Because you know how I was talking about Booker. I think that Booker is going to do a good job. I like the way that he's able to run between the tackles. That's something that you don't necessarily see with Saquon. So I wonder if they're going to try to use them in some type of combination or if they're just going to push Saquon into that leadership role again. He's not very efficient as a running back. And I think that again, you know, when you're talking about OBJ and kind of like being too much of the focus, right? Or when you're talking about Cam and kind of being a lot of the focus and the team really has to flow with him. I think that's one of the things with Saquon is that he demands a lot of attention for his skills. And sometimes it gets too forced. So I think what you do with Saquon is you let him do what he does best. You let him make those big plays every now and then. You don't have to use him all of the time as a pounding back, right? You can use him in different types of roles to get him into open space where he can really show what he can do. I'm excited to see what happens when and if he actually comes back. For the Raiders, though, yeah, again, I don't know. I don't know what happens with them throughout the rest of the season. I'm excited to see, though. The Raiders have a lot of momentum, more than I feel like they've had in some time for me personally. So I think that if the Raiders are actually able to get to that next level, if they are able to get to that consistency, it'd be a good thing for them. They need a win after all the losses they've been taking this year.
Yeah, but I think that they kind of blew themselves up in terms of personnel. They've not been making the best moves. And, even though their team has talent, I think they either cut or got rid of, in some way, a lot of their talent that they could have had. So, talent wise, I think this is, they're in a certain situation because of the poor management. But then you also do have the other issues where they've cut two young, good players recently for off the field problems. So, that's also another issue. I'm not sure why that other stuff occurred, but they've been put in that situation also because of non-football type stuff.
Yeah, I think that hopefully, like I said, that we'll see what happens with the Raiders. I'm not sure how the season's going to go, but like I said, we'll see what happens with them. Now I'm going to our two games of the week from last week. The first game that we had was Green Bay at Kansas City. So Green Bay at Kansas City. Again, this game was very close score wise and play wise as well, right? So Green Bay scored 7 points, Kansas City 13. Is this how you expected the game to go with Jordan Love as the quarterback? And is this for the Green Bay Packers? And is this what you expected from the Chiefs with their offense and with their maybe kind of struggle so far this season?
I did not expect for Kansas City to score 13 points. I expected Green Bay to have a poor offensive showing. I was okay with that.
Yeah.
But the fact that Kansas City couldn't jump on a team without its quarterback goes to show that Kansas City probably just doesn't have it, which makes it really hard to pick this week. But we'll get to that. But, I just think that Kansas City's showing was more disappointing than Green Bay's because Green Bay will get their starting quarterback back and then they'll look much better. But what's Kansas City going to do?
Yeah, I think that that's going to be one of the interesting things with Kansas City. OBJ also wanted to go to Kansas City as well. That was one of his dream destinations. But I think that Kansas City. Sorry, 1 second. Sorry. I think that Kansas City is actually one of those teams. Like I said, they're not clicking, right? Patrick Mahomes is trying to do things that he used to be able to do, and because of that, he it looks like he's just struggling, right? Like he's not making the same types of passes, right? He's not being able to have that same type of accuracy. And then the frustrating part is when you do have that accuracy, when you are getting it to your wide receivers, it's hitting their hands and falling down on the ground. And that's a very disappointing thing to have happen, right? The only reliable pair of hands that I can say that he might kind of have is Kelsey. Kelsey has somewhat reliable hands, but when he starts dropping passes, now you definitely have issues because who do you go to? Like, who are the reliable wide receivers that are on the Chiefs? Who?
Yeah, it's so weird because what the Chiefs had over other teams was scheme. They
Yep.
had some athletes that were above average athletes in certain positions, and then they had a scheme that got them open. But now those above average athletes don't seem to be as above average. Like, have you seen Tyreek Hill have like a 70-yard touchdown this year? Have you seen George Kittle?
Nope.
George Kittle. Have you seen Travis Kelsey burn anybody? Like, it just doesn't seem like they're as explosive as they were. And that's to be expected considering how deep they've been in the playoffs, how much football they've played. I get it. And Mahomes hasn't been throwing those crazy passes. You've not seen just big plays. And that's what that offense is built on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Even when you don't have a guy like Sammy Watkins, you still have McCole Hardman. He's not doing anything.
Nope.
And the run game isn't really great. So it's just like nothing is working for them. And
Yeah.
it's just like I said that about Lamar Jackson too. I was like, hey, Lamar Jackson hasn't had those huge runs,
Mhm.
but he still gets it done in other ways. But Kansas City, without their big plays, it doesn't feel like they're able to get it done.
Doesn't at all. And I think that that's one of the interesting things. The Chiefs' run game has almost been more solid than their passing game recently. And with Williams there, with what was it, Gore, right? These guys have actually been a little bit more solid sometimes, and they've been leaned on a little bit more to carry this team because they've had so many issues with the passing game. And I think that with the Chiefs, they really have to figure out their identity and what they are now, not what they have been, not what they were in the past. They need to figure out who they are now. They need to make those adjustments and figure out game plans that works for the team that they are now. One of the things that we talked about last year, I think it was with the Chiefs, is the Chiefs don't care about or didn't care as much about taking losses on first downs or whatever because they were big play teams. Like they could do a first and 25 and they would be perfectly fine with that because they are made for those longer pass plays, right? Those 15-yard gains, 20-yard gains. They take big chunks out of teams at a time, big chunks and yards out of teams at one time. So the Chiefs are a very strong team that could do those things. Now this year they have to adjust because what was working for them is no longer working for them. And yeah, I think they definitely actually do need another reliable set of hands at wide receiver. I don't know if OBJ is that guy specifically or if he would have been a good fit for them necessarily, but they they do need a guy with hands that can be more consistent because if not, that frustration that has to be building up with Patrick Mahomes or in Patrick Mahomes must be a lot. So I think that game was kind of interesting. I didn't really talk yet about Green Bay Packers. I think that Jordan Love is an interesting quarterback. He got better as the game prolonged or as the game went along. But one of the things that I'll say is he definitely needs a lot more experience. With the pressure coming to his face, he had no clue how to deal with it. He had no clue how to deal with that pre-play recognition, shifting the line, calling out the blitzers, and just making those at-line adjustments. And I think that that's one of the things that really kind of that stuck with me that in that game. The other thing that really stood out about the Green Bay Packers was that they saw all the pressure that was coming directly at Jordan Love. And what did they do? They kept calling these fly routes, these long passes. And I'm like, why do you keep doing that? You are not helping out your rookie quarterback by calling out these long pass plays. He doesn't even have time. He's trying to focus on his accuracy. Now he has to focus on a blitzer and seeing somebody downfield, diagnosing if he can get it to them where he needs to pass it at. And you saw that come out in his passes. Every time he tried to pass to Devontae Adams, it was a foot off. Devontae's trying to make plays. He made a play one time that helped out the defense that let them get the interception because he's trying to make a play. So Devontae was trying very hard to pull it together to get them that win, but they just didn't have it at the end. So interesting game, interesting takeaway from that whole Jordan Love situation. What are your thoughts on the Green Bay Packers, by the way, Jeremy?
I think the Green Bay Packers will be okay. They kind of, they gave away a game because Aaron Rodgers tested positive, couldn't play. But I think when he's back, there will be the same team that they were before, probably 13-3, like they have been the last couple years. But the Green Bay Packers, their season doesn't start till the playoffs because they have a couple of bad losses in the playoffs that they have to atone for. So unless they do that, it kind of doesn't matter what they do in the regular season. So I'm not too worried about them. I'm not, I don't think this means the sky is falling because they lost with Jordan Love at quarterback. I also don't think it has much to do with their outlook going forward. Jordan Love could be a very good quarterback going forward. He just needs the time. But as for now, we'll see what happens in the playoffs because right now, we'll just need to see them at a higher level play when the games matter.
Yeah, and one thing that's interesting about the Packers is that they have a lot of games coming up that are going to be very important, right? This week, Seattle. Who knows what's going to happen with that one? The next game they have the Rams. After that, they have the Ravens, and then they end the season against the Browns, who have been pretty hot. So it's going to be kind of interesting. They also have a tough game in there against the Vikings. Those interdivision type of games, especially with the Vikings, can be one where it goes either way. So the Green Bay Packers have a lot to show to get to the playoffs. And the reason why I bring up their games and how difficult they may be is it's a good thing that they're facing some tough competition right now, especially if they want to succeed in the playoffs. But I think that home field advantage, being in the code, is good for them, not because they do better, because other teams do worse. But Green Bay is one of those teams that even if they don't have home field throughout the playoffs, they can still go very far. Aaron Rodgers will show up in any stadium that you put him in. So I think that the Green Bay Packers have a good group going. The biggest thing is going to be COVID messing with Aaron Rodgers, and if he has to miss games. I think that's the biggest thing to look out for with the Green Bay Packers going to the playoffs.
Yeah, I just wonder if there will be any long-term fallout from this. You saw that the punishment wasn't very strict for Aaron Rodgers. He got the same fine as Alan Lazard did. The overall Green Bay team got fined $400,000, but it wasn't a big fine. It's $14,600 or something like that for Lazard and Aaron Rodgers. So it wasn't a huge fine, which means they're not. Aaron Rodgers probably isn't going to be discouraged from doing whatever he's been doing. We'll see how that works. We'll see if there's any future fallout from that because that could cause a problem. Because what if he did miss a playoff game? Then they're losing that game. So we'll see how that goes in the future. I didn't really like how it all happened, but it is what it is.
Yeah, definitely. Our last game of the week and the last game that we'll be talking about for week 9 of the NFL season is Tennessee at Los Angeles. So the Titans played the Rams in Los Angeles on a Sunday night game. Did you get a chance to watch that game, by the way, Jeremy?
Yeah, I saw it. I was in disbelief.
You're in disbelief, yeah.
I was in disbelief the whole time.
Why were you in disbelief? Why did you not believe that this was a possibility in the realm of the NFL when the Tennessee Titans have Ryan Tannehill?
The Titans aren't that good. That's why. The Titans aren't that good. And then they lost Derrick Henry, and they blew out a team that they're not better than. Somehow the Titans are the best team in the NFL right now. Somehow. I have to say that out loud because there's not much I can say that would actually disprove that. Therefore, I have to accept it. At this moment, the Titans are the best team in the NFL, which would have been cool in 2000, right? 2001, Steve McNair, but not cool right now. So yeah. I was really surprised that they won so easily and that Stafford looked terrible. Stafford threw a terrible interception. He, for some reason, didn't want to take what he thought was going to be a safety. Therefore, he just threw the ball straight to a defender. And did he score a touchdown on it? If he didn't, he got tackled really close, and they scored anyway.
Yeah.
But it was a terrible decision by a veteran quarterback, which should never be done because a safety is not the worst thing in the world. But he was actually outside, and forward momentum would have just been on like the 1 yard line.
Yeah.
Either way, it was a really bad decision, and that just started the whole comedy of errors that just happened with Los Angeles. They, for some reason, couldn't do anything, and then it didn't feel like the Titans' offense was doing that much, but they just kept scoring points, and they scored enough to win the game easily. So it was a really surprising game, and as much as the score, it was only 28-16, it felt a lot worse than that because the Rams got a garbage time touchdown with like 10 seconds left or something like that.
Yeah, I think that that's one of the things that was interesting for me is Stafford and the offense didn't really look like they were clicking that much, you know. And I think that that's one of the things that that you've seen before with Matt Stafford, right? When he gets under a lot of pressure, then that's when he starts to have those issues. This game, he took 5 sacks for 41 yards for a loss of 41 yards. Like that's kind of huge, right? He's not necessarily used to having that as much with being with the Los Angeles Rams. And now we're seeing Matthew Stafford start to force some things, start to try to make those plays, try to play that hero ball, which makes a lot of sense because that's what he's been doing his whole career, right? He's used to playing hero ball. He's used to being in that role where he has to make those plays. So when you're thinking about that part of Matt Stafford, it's not fully gone, right? I also heard that he had lunch with Carson Wentz this weekend, and Carson Wentz gave him some pointers. So
Is that what happened?
that could also explain.
That's what happened. Shannon Sharp reporting stuff that didn't happen.
Hey, that could also explain why he was so bad with some of his heroic decision trying making type of situations, I guess, right? So, anyways, I think that the biggest thing with the Rams is that they need some type of consistency and they need maybe a little bit more upfront because in the playoffs, again, when situations start to elevate, how is Matt Stafford going to be then? Jeremy listed an interesting stat about Matt Stafford going against really good teams. So, Jeremy, what is it? What do you know about Matt Stafford going against really good teams? What have you discovered about that?
I think I got the number wrong here, but it's something like what is it, 7-69 or 9-69 versus teams that end up with a winning record. Like he has a terrible record against winning teams. Some of it, as Paul pointed out, is just because he played for the Lions for so long. Some
Yeah.
of it is when he had a chance to beat winning teams, he just didn't. And they made, I think, 3 playoff appearances, and he hasn't won a playoff game in his career as a starter. So, he had chances to beat playoff teams and just couldn't get it done. So you have to wonder, is he going to be able to do it when it matters for the Rams? Because he's set up
Yeah.
to where he shouldn't have to do very much, and his team should always be better than the other team, at least for the first round of the playoffs and for most of the regular season. So he should get there. He should be able to get a win and get the monkey off his back. And then you got to start, wondering, can he do it beyond the first round? But if they can't win one playoff game with Matt Stafford, then clearly it's on him.
Yeah, interesting. So I think that's a very interesting point. Our live show just ended, by the way. So you want me to just come back to live show or pop it
It
back
says
up?
live on Facebook. How did it end?
I don't know. It just said that the live show had ended. So I don't know. Do you still see us talking on Facebook?
I see we're still live, it says.
No. That, yeah, I see that as well. Do you
Yeah.
have the Facebook feed up that shows us live?
Oh, well, keep acting like we're live.
All right. Well, we'll just keep recording, or I can just add to the live story again. I'll just, yeah, I don't know. Anyways, so what I was gonna say is that for the two teams, right? Los Angeles Rams, not sure what they do when they get to the playoffs. I'm not sure if they have enough ability, but now OBJ, maybe that's why they got him there. They need that intensity. They need somebody to bring him up. So we'll see what happens with that one. With Tennessee, though, Tennessee did a very good job, I think, overall in the game. Uh, they won in convincing fashion. They didn't necessarily have a ton of rushing yards, but what they did have was a dominant defense. And I think that defense really stood out. All the sacks that Matt Stafford took, all the interceptions that he had, those really played heavily in the outcome of the game. As far as rushing yards, right? The Titans had 26 rushes for 70 yards, basically. So not really too much. Their wide receivers didn't do too much. People thought that maybe this was Julio's chance to really show what he could do. Come back out there. He did catch all of his targets. AJ Brown had 11 targets and didn't catch 6 of those. But Julio did a really good job. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with Julio going forward. That defense, though, for the Titans, excuse me, they really showed up. And I think that that's what's going to be the thing that pushes the Titans even further. They better be hoping that they don't play a good Colts team because the Colts have their number if they can get consistent. So I think that the Titans, they showed who they were. They have a couple of more games this season that are tough, but they do play in a really solid Shield division. So luckily for them, I think the Colts would have to win a bunch of games to jump them. So most likely the Titans are going to be making the playoffs as the champs of the AFC South.
That was probably the one win that they really needed. And then I think the rest of it for the Titans is just good now because they don't have to worry that much. Like,
Yeah.
2 more wins and they're probably in the playoffs. And they got to play the Jaguars.
Yeah, so I think, like I said, I think that's going to be one of those interesting things to kind of see what ends up happening with those two teams. But I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens with those two. I did want to say one thing with the Rams. We talked about that tough competition and how Matt Stafford did. I think that one of the things that's going to be interesting to see is what does Stafford do when he plays against Green Bay? Because that game is coming up in 2 weeks, I believe. So that's one that to keep your eyes out and see how Matt Stafford does at that point. So cool.
Yeah, he's always had good games against the Packers. They just lose them all in the last minute.
Yeah. So we'll see. We'll see what happens, man. Next thing is our week 10 prediction. So week 10 doesn't maybe have a bunch of huge games in it, like let's see, Carolina, Arizona, but we already kind of talked about Cam. So that's one thing. Atlanta, Dallas, that might be one of the interesting ones, but we talked about their issues so far. Cleveland, New England is definitely going to be one of those games that's one I'll try to watch and keep my eye out for. I want to see how Cleveland does against New England and how New England does against Cleveland. Both of these teams are a little bit of a mystery. Are they really good? Are they kind of and then we also have Seattle, Green Bay. Do you know if Wilson's coming back this game or what the?
I know he's active. I think he's active, so I would guess
active.
he's playing.
So he's active. Is the running back? Was it Kaysen or whatever? Is
Chris Carson?
Carson. Is he?
I'm
is
not
he
sure
active?
about that. I'll have to look that up.
I think he might be coming back too, right? So now the Rams, the Seahawks might be getting back 2 of their key players, and I think that's one of the things that's going to be interesting. Them getting back those 2 key players and what might happen there. We have the Rams against San Francisco, which and then the big one that I think is Kansas City versus Las Vegas. So how about we talk about Kansas City, Las Vegas at least, and then if there's one other one that you find interesting, we can quickly chat about that. Go over our picks, and then we'll be done by 6 p.m. Cool. So what are your thoughts, Jeremy, with that Kansas City versus Las Vegas game?
I think that we've seen the best of Kansas City recently, and it's not good. Whereas I feel like Las Vegas might be a little bit better only because their floor, I think, is higher. And that it worries me so much about Kansas City that I don't feel like that they can reach those same levels that they used to reach. And their defense somehow limited Jordan Love. I don't know how. Like I said, we didn't expect them to play well, but it looked like the defense was great, right? Just based on the numbers.
Yeah.
But just the way that their defense has been playing against good competition and the fact that their offense can only score 13 points at that point against, knowing that that their defense was giving them good field position and making things easy for them. I don't feel like Kansas City has what it takes to win this game. I really don't. And it's just I don't understand it, especially since, Las Vegas is going through a lot right now. So both teams have a lot, and it's tough to pick, but I would probably pick against Kansas City more so than I would pick for Las Vegas.
Yeah. So I think that Kansas City, like you said, they have a lot of struggles. This division rivalry, maybe it'll be a time where they start to step up. They really need something to click. I feel like that's the thing that Kansas City hasn't really had. They haven't really had anything click. Like Patrick Mahomes hasn't been amazing. Kelsey hasn't been dynamic. Tyreek Hill hasn't been getting these long runs. Clyde hasn't been, these long pass plays where he gets these yards after catch, right? Clyde hasn't really done anything because he's been hurt. So they haven't really had much of an identity. Combine that with a defense that hasn't really done much either. Who are they? Who are the Kansas City Chiefs this year? I'm not sure that I know exactly who they are and what they actually have to offer. So that's going to be an interesting thing. They need to really figure it out. I feel like this game is going to be one that is very key and clutch for them because their record isn't horrible, right? What is their record right now? Like 5-3, something like that.
Yeah, I think they're the Chiefs.
Yeah, the
I
Chiefs.
think they're right at 500. Let me see.
So the one thing that I wanted to say about the reason for that, right, is I'm not worried about the Chiefs from necessarily the regular season, right? It's like they're doing okay in the regular season, right? They're not horrible right now. But the big thing for them
Yeah,
is
5-4. Sorry.
5-4, right? So they're over 500. They're right in the playoff picture. But what happens when you get to the playoffs? What team are you going to bring when you get to the playoffs, right? This Kansas City versus Las Vegas game, very winnable type of game, you know? So I think that with that being said, they can make the playoffs, but who are they going to be? Maybe they're going to be an easy win. Maybe they're going to be the team that everybody wants to play against. Hey, never would have thought that that's what we would have said last year going in, but maybe the Chiefs are the team that everybody's hoping that they play in the first round because they know that they can beat them. Interesting thought. Would never have predicted that a year ago. So,
Yeah.
and then as far as the Raiders, right? We talked about the Chiefs. The Raiders, again, they're coming off of two games where one, they did a really good job. They blew the other team out, and then they come back last week and they take a loss to the Giants, right? And that Giants team that I said is solid enough, right? Who are the Raiders and what can they do? I feel like they play a little bit better at home right now, even though they've been doing well on the road as well. I feel like they're playing a little bit better at home. They have a little bit more consistency. They feel a little bit more themselves. So, what are your thoughts of this Raiders team? Like they lost a lot of pieces. They lost a lot of targets. They did. Wait, did they add it? They added a wide receiver, right?
Desean Jackson, I believe.
Yeah, so they added Desean Jackson, right? And I think that that's one of the interesting points is now that they added Desean Jackson, what does that do to them, right? They were 5-2 last week, lost the game to the Giants, now 5-3. If they lose this game, they'll be 5-4, which is not necessarily the best, but if they win the game, right, they're going to be 6-3, and that's a huge difference between 5-4 and 6-3 with the momentum aspect of things. So they added Desean Jackson to try to fill in that role of what Ruggs was doing, and now they have a guy that might be a deep threat. I think that he probably gets a decent amount of clock this game because they're probably just going to have him doing those fly routes, those long routes, maybe some crossing routes, and they'll probably help him out with some of that stuff. So I could actually see him being used and utilized during this game. Um, what what do you think about Desean Jackson being added? Is it worth it? Do you think that he's going to be a contributor? We talked about that OBJ factor and how he fit in with the Rams. What do you think about Desean Jackson and being with the Raiders now?
Yeah, I think it's a good fit because he's always behind the defense, and there's going to be one time a game where he gets a shot, and he might or might not catch it, but there'll be at least one time a game where he's clearly behind the defense and they actually get the pass to him. So I think it's good because it's something that they already do anyway, and he's a natural fit for their offense. So I'm not too worried about that fit. I think it's good. I just wonder, will the team hold up for the rest of the season? You know, I mean, having the interim coach being this early in the season and having to play for the rest of the year with the interim coach, does his inspiration continue to work? Will it eventually wear off and they'll kind of come back to earth with it? You know, I'm not sure. I don't feel like it's going to be very sustainable to have the guy who didn't build the culture being the leader. You know, it seems a little bit more difficult than to have your regular coach. So I'm expecting them not to be able to sustain this. At what point does that happen? I'm not sure because that division, everybody can win and everybody can beat each other in that division, which is crazy. So I don't know what's going to happen. It's just a real interesting division. And right now, the best team in the division is 5-3. The worst team is 5-4. So it's up for grabs.
Yeah, it definitely is up for grabs. So this game will be a key one to look out for. Who establishes themselves? Two teams with a lot of question marks going for it. Both are definitely still in the playoff picture. Both have had highs in the past. Can they get back to those highs in the present? Is what we're looking for with this game. So I think that's fine for the game of the week for this one. We can talk about these individual games real quick, go through who we think is going to be the winner and who we think is not going to be the winner. And I think we can talk a little bit about the games during that time. But I think that it's an interesting game of the week. I was trying to think who I wanted to pick that one. I had a little thought, but I'll save that for just a second. Okay, so let's go ahead with the game that's going on right now. So Baltimore at Miami is happening right now. Who are you taking in that game, Jeremy?
I'm going to take the Ravens. I don't really feel like there's a whole lot to say about it. I think the Ravens are better. I think the Dolphins aren't too great. So I think the Ravens will win.
Yeah, this one I think is kind of interesting. I always feel like the Ravens just struggle. Like there's games that they should win where they just don't necessarily do what's needed. The Dolphins are one of those teams that they just seem like they're always on the cusp of doing something. With Tua out, though, I don't think that they're going to have a shot. I don't like Jacoby Brissett as a
Mm.
quarterback, and I don't think they're going to win this game. So for me, I'm right there with you. I think that Baltimore wins this game. I think that Baltimore has the better team overall. Um, they're very hit or miss, right? They're kind of like somebody was talking about the high highs and the low lows at times. But I do think that the Ravens have a little bit more this game than Miami. So I'm going to go ahead and go with Baltimore with you on this game. So
This must be the NFL Network feed because I don't watch games on Fox if I can help it because I don't like the way the channel looks.
mhm.
But this looks really good. If every Fox game looked like this one, I'd watch it more often.
Yeah, I guess I should try to stream it from somewhere pretty soon. Maybe I'll be working really soon, so won't be streaming that. Next thing, let's see. We have our next game is Atlanta at Dallas. So Dallas took that big loss last week. Atlanta pulled out the win over New Orleans. Can they make it back to back wins? By the way,
I am not going to predict that. I'm going to say Dallas rebounds and wins this game. They're playing at home again, and I think they can correct the mistakes. I think they can actually score some points. I think Atlanta will be a little bit less stingy on defense. So I think they can score some points. I think they can win. So I'm going to go with Dallas. I don't think that they'll not show up 2 games in a row.
yeah, I think Dallas is the safe pick here, right? It seems like they're back at home. They're figuring it out. I think the big question is this the game that Dallas has where they start to really shoot downwards, right? Is this the game where Dallas just loses at home and then everybody starts asking the questions like, what's going on with the Cowboys? What's going on in Dallas? And I think that it could be, right? If you think about what happens is the Cowboys have such high expectations as well as their fans. And what it takes is a team that shouldn't be beating them at home. And just for the fun of things, right? Dallas, I think that they are okay sometimes and they can do solid things as a football organization, I guess. But I'm gonna go ahead and go with Atlanta. I'm feeling Atlanta. Like I represent my aunt with this pick. So ATL, they had the Braves win. The Falcons, they riding that energy just as fast as that bus was going through downtown Atlanta. So yeah, I think I was gonna go ahead and go with Atlanta. Atlanta to pull the upset. Matt Ryan, it's your time. We talked about the toughness with Dallas's defense and how they don't have it or they sold it on eBay. They need to buy some, check out AliExpress, do something. They need to hit up some defense because it's been struggling a little bit more with that tenacity and that defensive front. And Gregory being out is just another thing that's going to hurt. So if you give Matt Ryan time, he might have that ability to take advantage of your team. And I didn't think that he was going to do what he did last week because he was going against a New Orleans team that has had a really strong defense this season. So to cut them up in the way that he was able to, hey, Dallas should be easy peasy, like I feel it. So I'm gonna go ahead and go with Atlanta and Matt Ryan. So have that game of your life, Matt Ryan, because I think that this is your win. All right. So
The man won MVP. I'm sure this is not the game of his life.
ooh, yeah, this is a game of his life. This is the one that he's gonna remember. MVPs, yeah, everybody has one of those. This game, nobody has one of those besides Matt Ryan. So here we
Nobody
go.
has this game yet.
Nobody has this game. So the next game that we have is Cleveland versus New England. What are your thoughts with this Cleveland versus New England game?
Because this is at New England, I'm going to go with New England. I
Okay.
still think Cleveland is hard to figure out, and they might be just maybe getting rid of Odell is what they needed to take off. So they could be putting up another 30, 40 points. But I think New England is playing so well on defense, and they're looking like a New England team on that side of the ball. They look real stingy. They look like they always know what's going on. They kind of know the play before it happens. Just watching them last week, I was like, wow, they're back on defense at least. So if Mac Jones can not turn the ball over, and they still have Damian Harris running really well. They had another guy, I can't remember his name now, playing well. He was playing so well as a rookie, I was afraid he was going to get cut the next game. So I don't know if that happened, but you know how it goes. You play too well in New England as a running back, you're cut. So they look like they've been playing pretty well, and I'm going to go with New England on this one.
Nice. Jeremy's going to go with New England. As you said, there's a little bit of injuries on both fronts. Damian Harris, one of the guys that I think is really, really solid, is questionable for this game, right? And then the other thing that I thought was big with this game is that Myles Garrett is questionable, but he'll most likely play. Jarvis Landry's questionable, but he'll most likely play. Nick Chubb is going to be out. So maybe not. It is a huge fall off, but luckily you have Kareem Hunt coming as well. And I think that Kareem Hunt being there is one of the things that gives me a pause to say maybe that Cleveland could win.
Are all of their running backs out? Their first three?
Yeah, I think it's just. Oh yeah, I think it's just Forrest there now. So
yeah,
I think that they're gonna be. Yeah, what's gonna happen, man? This is gonna be interesting.
Dearness Johnson, I think they said.
Dearness Johnson, yeah, there it is.
He might be one of them that's healthy.
Man, who do I go with? Who do I go with this game? I'm not positive, man. All right, cool. I'll make a decision. I'm going to go with Cleveland. I'm going to go with Cleveland pulling the upset in New England. I think that New England does have a very strong team. I like Bill Belichick with what he's doing with that team. They're finally hitting it. They're finally coming together, and he's understanding who he has in his pieces. Mac Jones is doing a very good job at leading his team to wins. So I think that that's pretty good. So we'll see what happens. I'm going to go ahead and go with Cleveland for this game, though. All right. Our next game is Buffalo versus the Jets. Do you think that Buffalo can rebound, or are the Jets going to be another Jacksonville?
Man, if Mike White's playing, it might be a problem. But, I mean, even Josh Johnson came back and was killing it when he had to come in. So maybe the Jets, just as long as they're not playing Wilson, they're okay. But I'm going to go with Buffalo because Buffalo has been too good in the season to go out like this. So I don't think that they can lose twice in a row to bad divisional opponents.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want them to, I guess, internally. So I'm going to say Buffalo wins this one. They have a lot to come back from. It was an embarrassing loss last week. So hopefully they're motivated. I think they can win this one.
Man, I think that Buffalo can win. I think that this being a battle of New York, the battle of New York. I don't know. I can't say that.
There's only one team that plays in New York, and it's Buffalo.
Are you saying that the Jets and the Giants don't play?
They don't play in New York.
Oh, well, I'm done with this. Anyways, dude, have you seen that stadium, by the way, up close or like
what?
Fairly close? The Jets Giants stadium.
MetLife, was it MetLife?
Probably so.
Nah, I haven't been up there.
Dude, that stadium is huge. It is huge, and it's all by itself, like in this little area. Like it was pretty cool when I saw it, but this was like years ago. So when it was like first being built. Mm-hmm. Anyways, I think that Buffalo can put it together. I do think this is going to be a challenging game for them mentally because they had to come out strong. They had to limit the mistakes, and they really had to focus in this game because you don't want to take two losses to the two worst teams in the NFL. Like that kind of, maybe they're not the two worst, but two of the bottom 5-6 teams in the NFL. Right? You don't want to do that. And I think that Buffalo needs to rebound. So I'm going to go ahead and go with the Buffalo Bills for this game as well. Sorry, I was just going to say that I was looking at the screen. I was like, man, I've been forgetting about fantasy sometimes this year. I think I had Myles Gaskins. I forgot that Tua wasn't playing. I would have pulled him anyways. And then I also picked up Devontae Freeman, I think, in some leagues, but I think I forgot to put him in. So
man,
whatever.
Thursday night is a killer for fantasy. You just don't know what you're going to get. Like, so Jonathan Taylor had a great week, But then sometimes your guys just do terribly. And if you have a guy playing Thursday night, it's almost better not to play him regardless of who he is. You just
See,
don't know what you're getting.
honestly, the other thing is that I feel like we do our show on Thursdays a lot of times. So typically I would check it beforehand and do it. But now that we're playing, I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot Thursday football was on until I saw it. I was like, dang. But oh well. I'm doing good in some leagues, not so good in others. So we'll see. We'll see what happens with me this year. So the next one that we have coming up is Detroit at Pittsburgh. So what do you think? Detroit getting their first win?
And you took Buffalo last game, right?
Yes.
All right. I do not believe Detroit will win this one. I don't think Pittsburgh is very good, but Pittsburgh has this thing that they're not going to lose more than they win somehow. Big Ben is making whatever plays he needs to make, running in slow motion. It still works for him. I don't know. Pittsburgh is still getting it done, and I think that they will get it done against Detroit.
Yeah, I think Mike Tomlin is just a really solid coach throughout in the sense that he doesn't let his team typically take big losses. He tries to keep the momentum. He tries to keep it fresh. There hasn't always been those successful years where he's 11-5 or 12-4, but he's been really solid as a coach. Detroit just doesn't have enough, I think, consistency at this point. They could pull the upset, but it's a small chance that they do. So I'd say like a 20% chance they win. So I'm going to go ahead and go with Pittsburgh in that game. The next game that we have is New Orleans versus Tennessee at Tennessee. New Orleans has had a strong defense throughout the year. They didn't show well last week. Tennessee has been doing really well. They showed last week that they could get it done against a quality team without having their top running back. What do you think is going to happen in this game between Tennessee and New Orleans?
I don't think it's smart to pick against Tennessee, so I'm not going to.
Awesome.
I don't understand how they're getting it done. I don't care what anybody tells me. I refuse to listen. Don't try to explain it. I don't get it, and I never will. But they look like the best team in the NFL right now. They've been beating good teams. So I think they'll continue. I got to go with Tennessee.
Tennessee, awesome. I'm also going to go with Tennessee. I think Tennessee is just a little bit stronger. New Orleans still has that quarterback issue. Even though their defense is pretty good, I think Tennessee has a very good defense as well. And going against a quarterback that isn't that seasoned probably has them ready to get some more picks or some pick sixes. So I think I'm going to go with Tennessee for this game over New Orleans. The next game that we have is Tampa Bay at Washington. I'll start out with this one since we talked about the other ones. Tampa Bay at Washington, I feel like this is one where it's a trick game. It seems like Tampa Bay is going to be that pick to go with. Washington hasn't really done much all season. But this could be a surprise game for a lot of people out there. I think that Washington might actually keep this game closer and might pull the upset. But I feel for right now, do I want to go Washington?
You don't.
I'll go with I there's a small part. I think that the Tampa Bay defensive front is gonna be that thing that pushes me to go towards Tampa Bay. So I think that Tampa Bay pulls out this game. But again, it's going to be one that's a lot closer than a lot of people anticipate. What are you taking, or who are you taking for this game, Jeremy?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Tampa Bay. I think everything you described just would lead someone to bet Washington to cover the spread, and that's it. So whatever that is, if they're supposed to lose by 10, maybe they lose by 9 or something. But they're not winning the game, I don't think. So I'm going with Tampa Bay.
Okay. Jeremy's going with Tampa Bay. I'm going with Tampa Bay. We'll see what happens in that game. The next game is Carolina versus Arizona at Arizona. I'll start this one. Yeah, Carolina just doesn't have enough, I think, at this point. So I'll go with Arizona. I do think that Walker being out there is something different that defense may not necessarily be used to seeing. So he could cause them some issues, but I don't think that the defense for Carolina is consistent as they should be at this point. So I don't think that they're going to get the win. So for me, I'm going to go ahead and go with Arizona in this game. Jeremy, who are you picking, and what are your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, same thing. I think Carolina wants to get something going. They want to try to salvage the season. I don't think it starts here, though. Arizona is just a much better team, and I think Arizona will win.
Okay, awesome. So we're going with Arizona. Next game, Minnesota at the Chargers. I'll start out with that one. I think Minnesota, again, they're a team that, they'd be undefeated if they had 18 points that were spread between their games, right? They keep losing these close games by 3 or less points, and that's really disappointing for a team that has a lot of potential. the Chargers have been doing really good. They had that tough win that they pulled out in Philly. They also lost the week before that really bad. The game before that, they beat the Ravens really by a ton. So they're very up and down as a team. And I think that that team goes with Justin Herbert. If Herbert's having a really good game, then that team has a really good game. So I think that that's one thing to kind of keep in mind. I don't think that Minnesota is super strong where it's going to cause Herbert to not play as well. But I'm going to go ahead and go with Minnesota. I feel like Minnesota, again, they need to get that edge. They're so close. They're the team that just didn't have enough throughout the season. So I hope that they get that win. Who are you going with, Jeremy? What do you think about this game?
I think this is one of those games that Minnesota almost wins. I think this is a typical game where Minnesota is like, hey, we're going to keep it close. We're going to take it to overtime. We're going to lose by a field goal. It's going to happen again. Maybe they don't lose by a field goal in overtime, but I think they keep it really close. I think they're tough. I think it's competitive, but I think the home team manages to pull it out. So I'm going to go with the Chargers winning.
Nice. Jeremy's going to go with the Chargers, so I'm going to go with Minnesota. The next game that we have is Philly versus Denver. Shoot, man. Who do I want to choose for this one?
I'll go first. So I feel like last week's game messed everything up. I picked Philly to win, and they almost beat the Chargers last week. It was a really close game. And it was like, I was like, man, I know Philly can win this one. I know the Chargers aren't playing great. West Coast to East Coast, it's a real thing. And then Denver went and blew out Dallas. So both of these teams did the opposite of what I thought, making it worse and more confusing. But this is in Denver. And anytime it's an even game, but it's in Denver, I'm going to go with Denver only because of the home field. So I'm going with Denver.
Yeah, I'm also going with Denver. This was a hard pick for me. I think that Philly has a real good shot at upsetting Denver in this game. But I do like the point that I was making earlier with Jerry Jeudy and that consistency in him being able to help out with keeping those drives alive. When you have a wide receiver that can get separation and has quality hands, it allows you to do a lot more on offense, especially when you're trying to chug along and really kill the other team's defensive energy. So I think that Denver is going to do a really good job of that in this game. But I wouldn't be surprised if Philly had a solid game. I think Denver's just going to be a little bit too much.
You got to be off in like 7 minutes.
Yeah, we'll finish up before then.
All right, speed round.
Oh, we're good. So I do think that Denver's going to be able to pull out that game against Philly. One thing that I'll say with Philly, I like the way that Devontae Smith is developing throughout the season. He's a really good young guy, and hey, man, Philly has a lot to grow from. I still don't like their quarterback, but hey, it is what it is. The next game that we have is Seattle at Green Bay. So Russell Wilson might be back. Chris Carson or whatever, right, might be back. And that's a big boost for the Seattle Seahawks, who started out the season a little bit stronger, and now they have been losing games, but Gino did come through. Gino did come through and get one win. So what do you think? Green Bay Packers and Roger, is he coming back for sure? He's coming back this game or no?
I think he is. So I think if Aaron Rodgers plays, I'm going with Green Bay. I think it could be a really close game, and Seattle seems to play Green Bay really close anyway. But I think Green Bay is just a little bit better, and I think they'll win.
Yeah, I think I'm also going to go with Green Bay. If Jordan Love starts, hopefully his team does a better job of protecting him. Hopefully they get together a better game plan. It felt like they just tried to use an Aaron Rodgers game plan for Jordan Love, and that didn't work. So I think that Green Bay has a strong defense, and that's going to be able to help them out. So I think I'm going to go ahead and go with Green Bay as well for this game. So let's jump to our next game. Our next game is the Los Angeles Rams versus San Francisco, the Monday night game. So this game is in San Francisco.
Kansas City at Las Vegas.
That's our game of the week, so I'll talk about that last. So the Rams versus San Francisco. I think that with them, this game is being played in San Francisco. I guess, Jeremy, what do you think about this game? Does San Francisco have any type of shot against the Rams, who lost last week?
I don't think this week. I think San Francisco is still trying to figure out what it wants to do. It doesn't know. It's not playing well at all. So I'm going with the Rams.
Okay. I'm actually going to switch it up. I'm going to go with San Francisco this game. So I think that San Francisco doesn't have a lot, but I think that they may have enough to beat the Rams. They have the ability at sometimes to get pressure on the quarterback, which is one of those things that they need to have to win this game. I think that Garoppolo isn't necessarily the best quarterback, but they have some pieces. Brandon Ayuk is doing really well. And then you also have Debo Samuels that can elevate his game at any time. So I think that I'm going to give the edge to San Francisco. I think it'll be a close game, but I think that San Francisco wins it by at least a touchdown. So I'm going to go with San Francisco for that game over the Rams. And then
I
our
think we
game.
missed. Did we miss Jacksonville at India at Indy? Did we already say that one?
Oh no, I forgot that one. Yeah, Jacksonville, Indy.
I'm
So
gonna go with the
Jacksonville
Colts on
versus
that one.
Indy.
Just go ahead.
Okay, cool. Jackson versus Indy. Yeah, I want to go with Indy for this game. I think that we're just going to be a little bit stronger than Jacksonville, so we'll both go with Indy on that game. And then the last game, our game of the week, Kansas City versus Las Vegas. So who are you taking in that Kansas City versus Las Vegas game, Jeremy?
I think I'm going with Las Vegas. I think I said it before. Kansas City. We saw what Kansas City did against a good team at their best. I can't imagine they're going to look that much better against Las Vegas. And I feel like the ceiling on Las Vegas is a little higher, so I'm going with the Raiders.
Yeah, I feel like the biggest thing that has helped out the Raiders this season that hasn't caused them to be out of games or lose. They used to make so many mental mistakes, right? They used to allow guys to get behind them. They used to do a bunch of different things. The big thing that I say might hurt the Raiders this week is Arnett, right? Arnett was their cornerback, first round pick, I think 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Now he's out. How do you deal with that when you have Tyreek Evans coming across? He's a very quick running back, and I think that there's
Tyreek Hill.
something.
That's cool.
Sorry, Tyreek Hill. I don't even know. Yeah, Tyreek Hill, right? Tyreek Evans is a really good running back. He probably would be actually, but yeah, with Tyreek Hill, I think that the Raiders have a lot of energy this year. I think, man, this was a tough one. I wanted to go with the Raiders, but just thinking about that makes me consider Kansas City. Actually, I'll just go with the Raiders as well. So yeah, so we're both going with the Raiders in that game. So I think that's pretty much all of our games. So the three games that we didn't agree on were Atlanta versus Dallas. Jeremy took Dallas, I took Atlanta. The other one was Minnesota versus the Chargers. I took Minnesota. Jeremy took the Chargers. And the last game was San Francisco versus Los Angeles Raiders. So, sorry, Rams. And I took San Francisco. So I'm going with the underdogs for these games. I like the underdogs. I think that they have a really good shot. I know there's going to be some upset. So I think that I'm happy with my picks overall. What about you, Jeremy? Any picks you want to change? Any last minute thoughts or anything like that?
No, I'm happy with my picks. Trying to do better this week than last week, so I'm good with it.
All right, sounds good. Me as well. I just looked. Miles Gaskin has 3 carries for 3 yards with a long of 3. Go figure. That's my life. Anyways, I'd like
Jerome
to
Bettis
thank you.
numbers.
Yeah. Wow. I'd like to thank you guys for joining today's show. Definitely leave comments if you like today's show. Share it with your friends. We appreciate you guys coming, listening, and giving your feedback. So thank you guys for all of that. If you listen on Apple Music, make sure to like us at 5 stars. Or sorry, like us and give us 5 stars and comment if you like. What's your favorite part of the show? What keeps you coming back? We definitely would like to know, and definitely love to share that with others as well. Any last thoughts before we get out of here, Jeremy?
Yeah, let's wish Paul a happy early birthday. His birthday will be before our next show, and we'll let you know whenever that show is. But let's wish Paul a happy early birthday.
What about
That's
what
it.
about what about your birthday?
That'll happen after the next show.
Man, this is ridiculous. All right. Anyways, thank you guys for any birthday wishes. It's much appreciated. Thank you again. This is Beyond Sports with Paul and Jeremy. I'm Paul.
I'm Jeremy.
All right. You guys have an awesome week and enjoy football this weekend.
All right,
Peace.
take it easy.
Bye.